Now, many Americans are going to receive about $3,000 from the IRS, and millions of people are urging Democratic lawmakers to pass President Biden's legislative agenda using the budget reconciliation process. Folks, this is your fourth stimulus check update and daily news report. We have a ton of news to cover in today's video, so be sure to stay until the end and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.
This is historic progress, pulling our economy out of the worst crisis in 100 years, as well as other elements of the American Rescue Plan.
Now, according to The Hill, a majority of likely voters in a new poll supports Democrats passing President Biden's $4 trillion agenda using a budget reconciliation process without needing Republican support. The poll found that 62% of those surveyed somewhat or strongly support passing Biden's American Jobs Plan and American Families Plan together using budget reconciliation. There are considerable differences across party lines, with 86% of Democrats supporting the use of the reconciliation process, 59% of independents supporting it, and only 36% of Republicans supporting it. What are your thoughts on this, everybody? Should Democrats use the budget reconciliation process again? Or should they try to negotiate with Republicans? Tell me your thoughts on this in the comments below. Now, folks, we do know this. 68% of those surveyed said they would be somewhat or much more likely to support a lawmaker who votes to spend $400 billion on long-term care for seniors and people with disabilities, even if it's passed on a partisan basis. The White House is trying to jump up support for the $1.2 trillion bipartisan deal, focusing on physical infrastructure like roads and bridges that President Biden and a group of bipartisan senators agreed to last week.
I will note that while the president ran on and won the most votes of any candidate in history in a platform of boosting funding for law enforcement, after Republicans spent decades trying to cut the COPS program, which again is public record, we don't need to undervalue the intelligence of the American people. The president ran on increasing that funding. It's in his budget. It was in President Trump's budget. He significantly cut that, so that's a change. And the American Rescue Plan had a great deal of funding for local and state authorities, something that can support funding for local police in communities across the country.
However, progressives have been very wary of the infrastructure deal because it leaves out key priorities. And Democratic leaders in Congress plan to move a bipartisan bill and a larger reconciliation bill together in order to try to get Joe Biden's agenda passed in full. A top Democratic lawmaker said that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is standing firm on her demand that the Senate pass the House's reconciliation bill before the lower chamber will consider the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. Speaking to reporters after a House caucus meeting, the Budget Committee Chairman, John Yarmuth, said that Speaker Pelosi remained committed to passing the second infrastructure measure, focused on Democrats' broad policy priorities. Biden split his two-part Build Back Better proposal into two packages for Congress to pass. The first is the American Jobs Plan, which is focused on infrastructure, while the second, the American Families Plan, is aimed at funding Democrats' domestic policy platform. Now, folks, I need you to know this. Over 80 members of Congress have been urging President Biden to support recurring direct cash payments and enhance unemployment compensation to Americans until the end of the crisis. There is also a proposal for automatic stabilizers, whereby if certain economic triggers were hit, these programs could be deployed again. Without the need, President Biden, folks, is traveling to more states to draw up more support for his bipartisan infrastructure package, as well as additional plans for investing in families. But governors are criticizing Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer for not already passing the infrastructure bill. What are your thoughts on Speaker Pelosi, everybody, and the Democrats? And who do you think is holding back our stimulus check? Is it senators like Joe Manchin, or is it Mitch McConnell? Tell me who's to blame, everybody, for holding back the fourth stimulus check. Feel free to comment down below. And also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a like. On this channel, folks, I always do my best in providing you with the most up-to-date and reliable stimulus check news. Now, President Biden...
And we made a decision there and then that our top priority would be to get you relief, to get working people relief, to get checks in pockets and tax credits in bank accounts. And with the help of this labor union, we delivered that relief. And I want to thank you on behalf of the president and myself for the work you did.
Just talked up his bipartisan infrastructure package, as well as additional plans for investing in families and education. President Biden is on a trip to Michigan. It's part of his broader campaign by the administration to bring public support to the infrastructure package and other policies that are geared toward families and education. First Lady Jill Biden is going to Maine and New Hampshire as well, while Vice President Kamala Harris is scheduled to visit a union training center in Las Vegas. Joe Biden said the key is getting his $973 billion deal passed involves taking a case straight to the voters, while Republicans and Democrats might squabble in Washington. Biden's theory is that lawmakers of both parties want to deliver for the constituents. White House officials negotiated the compromise with a bipartisan group of senators led by Republican Rob Portman of Ohio and Democrat Kirsten Sinema of Arizona. The agreement features $109 billion on roads and highways, $15 billion on electric vehicle infrastructure and transit systems, and $65 billion toward broadband, among other spending on airports, drinking water system, and effort to take down climate change. The White House officials negotiated the compromise with a bipartisan group of senators led by Republican Rob Portman and Kirsten Sinema.
There is a move not to preserve Social Security from those on the other side of the aisle, too many of them, but to end it.
The president intends to pass additional initiatives on education and families, as well as tax increases on the wealthy and corporations through the budget reconciliation process. This would allow the passage of President Biden's priorities by a simple majority vote, avoiding the 60-vote hurdle and a Senate split evenly between Democrats and Republicans. But during a town hall meeting, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan toured House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer for holding the bipartisan infrastructure bill endorsed by Biden in order to gain leverage on other spending bills. Larry Hogan spoke about the $953 billion infrastructure bill that was endorsed by Biden, saying the plan will put Americans back to work and will improve the American infrastructure. Hogan called the bipartisan bill a moment for us to show the American people that Congress is able to work together to deliver bipartisan, common sense solutions to all of our problems. What are your thoughts on Speaker Pelosi, everybody, and Chuck Schumer? Are they doing all that it takes to help out the American people like you and I? Leave a comment down below, folks, saying yes or no. Governor Hogan also stated that they're holding the bill as leverage for other spending bills, that we can debate about whether these are worthwhile proposals or not, but they have nothing to do with infrastructure and they don't have bipartisan support. The governor of Maryland then talked about President Biden, saying that instead of taking the huge win they seem to have wanted to make happen, President Biden is risking the derailing of the bipartisan agreement. Well, folks, the White House pointed to comments that Press Secretary Jen Psaki made on Tuesday, where she stated that Biden made clear that he's going to work his heart out on getting both bills across the finish line. In regards to your tax refunds, folks, the March American Rescue Plan excludes the first $10,200 of unemployment benefits as non-taxable income. The tax agency said at least 13 million people who filed their tax returns before the change in law took place may be eligible for a refund. The tax break is for those who earned less than $100